Hello there. What is going on, everybody? 2023 is going to be a very important year for Star Wars gaming, especially for Atomic Mass games. We're going to be talking about what we expect in 2023 and why it is so significant for games like X-Wing, Armada, Star Wars Legion, all of these tabletop miniatures games that I talk about quite frequently here on the channel. If you guys are new here to the channel, I do invite you to stick around. I talk a lot about Star Wars and Star Wars tabletop gaming, games like X-Wing, Armada, Legion, miniatures gaming, even board games, sometimes games like Star Wars Rebellion. Lots of Star Wars gaming exists, and if you're not too familiar with it, this is a great place to learn more. Also, we do giveaways all the time. We're currently, we just wrapped up another giveaway. We're starting a big giveaway right now that's going to run through the end of the year for a lightsaber in the form of a $200 Amazon gift card that you can use to get a lightsaber of your choice or put towards some of your favorite tabletop gaming stuff. All you have to do to enter to win that or any of my giveaways is be a subscriber. If you're already subscribed, you're already halfway there. Second, you just have to leave a comment on this or one of my videos. I want to hear some of your predictions for 2023 as it applies to Star Wars or Star Wars tabletop gaming. With all that being said, also I want to remind everybody that we also do 12 Days of Life Day during the month of December. Every year, I'll be doing that again this year, and that will be just 12 different giveaways. That's also going to go to people who have entered to win giveaways, whether you are subscribed and left a comment, or if you are subscribed and have yet to leave a comment, you still can do that. There's plenty of time left, so make sure you do that. Also, if you want to learn more, there's other links down in the video description below. Check that out for links to social media as well as our Discord, which is a great place to keep the discussion going. All right, so let's talk about 2023. First, I want to take a little time jump back to 1983. A movie you may have heard of called Return of the Jedi. So Return of the Jedi is getting ready to have its 40th anniversary, and so we do know that Atomic Mass Games has some Return of the Jedi themed releases planned for 2023, namely the Ewoks coming for Star Wars Legion. Now that has been talked about for quite a while now. They have also talked about things like Ahsoka Tano and Asajj Ventress coming for Star Wars Legion, mostly Star Wars Legion stuff, possibly some X-Wing stuff as far as reprints. No Armada news at this time, and so when looking at a lot of the stuff that has been announced, it definitely seems like the focus is likely on Return of the Jedi with, of course, with the Ewoks. It certainly seems like Armada could potentially get something, and if it was going to get anything big and new, Return of the Jedi would make for a fantastic movie to kind of commemorate the most iconic and greatest space battle of all time, that being the Battle of Endor, which was one of the few awesome and well-known space battles to actually feature capital ships, which is pretty iconic for Star Wars Armada. So if they have something up their sleeve, this would be the year to pull it out. However, there's also some potential risks or, both good and bad things that can happen in 2023. And I want to take your mind now to a question of advertising. So hopefully in 2023, we'll see a major uptick in awareness, advertising, and web presence, what I'll call, for AMG as it applies to their Star Wars games. If you'll notice, you might not notice because it's not something you actively notice if you're already a player of these games, but it seems that they don't really advertise very much. Outside of like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, outside of their social media, you don't really see advertisements for these games, whereas you still do for other games. And that's something that can potentially fly under the radar, but it goes back to a discussion I had with AMG employees earlier this year. And and I don't want to get anybody in trouble, so I'm not going to name names, but basically it boils down to there's basically something that's kind of preventing them from doing certain advertisements right now, and that hopefully should change in 2023. To me, that sounded like it wasn't a whole lot, but it meant that, basically what I walked away with was the impression that in 2023, AMG will be able to talk a lot more about either future products or existing products and their Star Wars games, and potentially maybe the Marvel games too, or even potentially whatever their mystery game is, their next game that we really know nothing about other than the fact that it was spoiled years ago, which makes for a pretty good segue as to why I think a lot of the holdup and a lot of the website problems that we've seen might be on hold. Website problems meaning that if you go to atomicmassgames.com, it looks like a Marvel-only website, and they have added a few things, but it's really, objectively, it's just not a good website to represent the games that they have covered. For example, if you go to Atomic Mass Games right now, you'll see mostly Marvel stuff, and on the right hand side, if you click on the drop down, you're going to see things like, hey, there are some X-Wing, there's like this Star Wars stuff, there's Star Wars announcements, which were back from like 2020 when they first got the Star Wars stuff. But then you'll see some X-Wing documents and some Legion documents, but those are kind of all over the place, and you can't really find a collection of articles. If you go back to the old Fantasy Flight website, it used to have a very clean, easy to navigate, easy to find information. It was, if you were looking for an article, you could find it either if it was on the front page, if it was one of the top 8, or if you clicked on any product, you could get a list of all the articles they've ever written that referenced that product. It's a really, really well done website. And AMG, yes, for I would say almost 2 years now has been, promising a new website, a revamped website to showcase these games. We still haven't seen it go live yet. We have gotten some updates that it is close and that it was virtually ready. It was supposed to be ready the beginning of this year, then it was supposed to be ready in March, then it was supposed to be ready in April, and it was supposed to be ready in May, and it was supposed to be ready any day now, and it was supposed to be ready by Mini Stravaganza, which has long since come and gone. And now we're not even hearing any updates about it anymore. So, at least I haven't. And certainly, it's certainly not live yet, at least as of the time of me recording this video. So what is the holdup? Because when I go to that website, I can't find articles. You might find the most recent article for something like X-Wing, for example, but you couldn't find any older articles. You can still find them if you go to the Twitter page and scroll down, and you just go to AMG's feed. You might find a direct link to an old article, and you can still get those. And it's nice that they've been doing atomic mass transmissions for Star Wars games finally, but it took them a very, very long time to get to doing that, and they're still not directly linked in on the website. And to make matters worse, Star Wars Armada isn't listed at all on their website. At all. You wouldn't think they even had Star Wars Armada unless you were to find like a vague mention of it in some larger article from 3 years ago or 2 years ago. So, now even though they have put out content for Star Wars Armada with rapid reinforcements and then FAQ pages and errata pages, they are not linked on the website. You have to find a direct link. And usually you can find those in the various Armada communities, like the Facebook pages, the Discords, and things like that. You can find those if you know where to look. But new players, or if somebody new goes to atomicmassgames.com, they wouldn't even know what Star Wars Armada is. And they would have a hard enough time finding Star Wars games at all, because if you look at the page, you'd think it was only Marvel. So obviously there's problems. They have a new website. It still hasn't launched yet. And I believe that all hinges on 2023. So what's the issue with 2023? All right, this is the subject of the video. I've kind of prefaced all the stuff, all the problems and all the issues that are leading up to 2023. Well, we're going to rewind back to early 2020 at the Gamma conference and in Las Vegas, I believe it was, where Steve Horvath, Asmodee North America president, sat down for an interview with Team Covenant and talked at length about some of the future plans. Now, granted, this was an old interview. This was almost 3 years ago. This was when Fantasy Flight still had its Star Wars games, and this was when AMG had come out with Marvel Crisis Protocol, and it was doing very, very well. Steve Horvath talked a lot about the plans for things in the future. Talked about Imperial Assault, saying that its plan was not over. We've learned since then that has changed. We learned that AMG had a game number 2 in the works, although it was still pretty far out. But he basically hinted, look, AMG isn't just doing Marvel Crisis Protocol. They have a whole nother game that they're working on, but stay tuned. Now, very surprised we haven't seen that yet. I wonder if that's related to 2023. But what he did mention with the Star Wars games, he talked about Armada's, their final wave, which was, wave 10, I believe at the time, which was the Clone Wars Wave 2, which is stuff that was already kind of spoiled, but or at least hinted at, and that was kind of the last Armada news that we really got as far as a new wave. But we also learned that AMG had just completed their 3-year deal with Lucasfilm, and they had this great 3-year plan, and this was early 2020, so presumably it had happened either at the end of 2019 or early 2020, but before, I want to say, the first week of February in 2020. So very, very early 2020. And of course, 2023, that will put us 3 years past, which certainly indicates that whatever deal either Asmodee or Fantasy Flight and AMG had with Disney and or Lucasfilm is probably come to a conclusion. Now, that doesn't mean an end. That just means, as somebody who's worked with contracts before, they don't last forever, usually. They're usually, from this date to that date, with the option to renew or recompete, and licensing deals will probably have some type of renewal date, and that all seems to point to 2023. I would even say early 2023. We should know something before February. Now, I don't believe that they will come out and say, "Hey guys, we won the deal. We've renewed our license." They don't usually come out and say that. It was kind of different for Steve Horvath to mention that, but I thought it was pretty cool and refreshing, and I would hope that we do hear something kind of like that again, whether it be from somebody at higher ups at Asmodee, or even from somebody at the gaming companies like FFG and Atomic Mass. Now, why is this important? Well, first off, if they do not get a renewal of license with Lucasfilm, then they won't be able to make any more Star Wars games. Now, obviously, they've been releasing stuff, so I don't see any big red flags to say that they would lose a license. But there's always that possibility, or there's always the possibility that a deal could be renegotiated, and so a lot of things could potentially change. They might, for example, not get an exclusive license to miniatures games, and which could lead to, hey, all of a sudden, yeah, you can make Star Wars Legion, but maybe CMON gets a Kickstarter and they make a Star Wars miniatures games, and maybe Privateer Press starts making Star Wars miniatures games, and maybe Games Workshop starts making Star Wars miniatures games, and who knows? Games Workshop's, for example, they've been they're doing Magic the Gathering. They have their own Commander decks now and stuff. So there's really a lot of different ways that 2023 could evolve as it applies to licensing. We've seen Lucasfilm kind of change their exclusivity and open it up quite a bit with video games. It used to be just EA was the only ones that could make Star Wars games, and now they've kind of opened that up a little bit more, and now we're starting to see more and more companies work on Star Wars games. So maybe that could potentially happen with tabletop gaming as well. We've already seen new games and things announced for Star Wars under the Asmodee umbrella. Like with the Pandemic Clone Wars game that just recently came out. Of course, Fantasy Flight announced a Star Wars deck builder. We're still waiting to hear more about that. And all of these things could hinge on 2023. Now, I don't think that this means, even if things go bad, that we're going to see suddenly a complete cutoff, because anything that they make in 2022 would still be able to be sold in 2023 and 2024 and so on and so forth, but we might see that eventual grind out, because if it's not renewed, then there would have to be all right, well, you still have stuff in production, right? But I feel like the ambiguity of 2023 answers two questions. For one, it probably answers why certain things don't have more emphasis behind them. For example, Star Wars Armada, right? Maybe they don't want to start, and this is speculation, but if it's something, I'm basing it on maybe decisions that I would make if I were running a company. If I didn't know if I was going to have the license in a few months, I probably wouldn't want to start creating waves of ships, which are expensive. We know Armada is the most expensive game to produce. They're the largest ships. They have the most detail. They're all pre-painted. And with X-Wing not far behind. I might want to hold off on investing a ton of R&D, man hours, and capital into creating a product that we're not actually going to be able to keep in production. So I feel like 2023, if that goes well, that could be good for games like X-Wing and Armada. Legion being a little bit less expensive to produce, seems like that was the more obvious way to kind of keep things going right away. Whereas keeping Armada and X-Wing with just card packs and things like that is also the kind of cheaper way. This way you're not trying to get pre-printed things done. So it makes it just for kind of a cheaper thing and an easier way to kind of be safe about your business decisions. So I feel like if 2023 goes really well, we might see new ships for X-Wing and Armada, maybe. I certainly, fingers crossed, I hope so. And also maybe new things for Legion, and maybe whatever this other mystery game is, maybe it was a licensed game, and they're holding off because they don't want to send it into mass production because they don't know what 2023 holds. Who knows? That's really just a guesswork. Either way, I'm still anxious to see what it's going to have. But that's a big thing. Also, my guess is that the website is probably pushed back pending whatever is going to happen with the Star Wars games in 2023. Maybe they have reason to believe that they'll only get Marvel, and maybe they don't think they're going to be able to keep Star Wars, and so they don't want to change over the website to a Star Wars or a more game-centric website. Or maybe they're just waiting for approval. I mean, it could not have. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with 2023 at all. But I feel like with all of the the promises and the pushback, it's, I'm sure the website probably has something to do with licensing, and and that's one of those things where we're never really going to know, and so we have to kind of just accept that we're gonna have to be patient with it. But at the same time, it is still frustrating. As somebody who plays like a game like Star Wars Armada, to try to go to their website to like, hey, can I look up rapid reinforcements again? Let me see what the FAQ said. Oh, that's right, it's not here. Now I gotta just start Googling it and find who has the hot links all saved and stuff like that. That's really frustrating. Same thing goes for games that they even do have linked, like X-Wing. I was trying to find an old X-Wing article, not even that old, only like a 2 or 3 week old X-Wing article, and I could only find the most recent one on there. They just didn't have it. And if you clicked on their X-Wing section in the atomic mass transmissions, there was only like the one most recent article. They just weren't all there. So while it's frustrating, I understand that they probably, I don't think there's any reason at all that they don't want to have the new website up. I feel like the only reason they don't is because they can't. And hopefully 2023 will mean that things will change, and for the better. But what if they don't? What if, let's just say, AMG were to not get renewed for the license? What would that mean for your tabletop games? Well, first off, you'd still be able to play your games. Whatever's in production would likely still be able to come in production. It's not like retailers are going to start yanking brand new product right off shelves. I would, things like Boba Fett and Mando, IG-88 and all that new stuff. Maybe even the Ewoks, since they're probably already in production by now, probably still going to come out. But I don't think you'll see much more after that if 2023 goes poorly for Asmodee and or AMG. Worst case scenario, the license goes somewhere else. Now, it is possible for games, for maybe some other company to take over these game lines. There may be a delay, but we've seen it before. We've seen other game companies take over games. I've seen Kickstarters go live. Rivet Wars was a game that was, I think, a CMON game, and it went to a whole nother company. And I think Steamforged or somebody like that has it now, and they're now relaunching it, and it's coming back. HeroScape was gone for years, and now that's back under Hasbro in a Kickstarter right now, or rather a HasLab. And even look at Keyforge. That one was gone. Or was pretty much done, and now now Ghost Galaxy, Christian Peterson's new company, has that, and they're making it. So games like Legion, X-Wing, and Armada, in theory, could totally just be picked up by another company, and they could start working on them right away. And that would actually be pretty cool if it was a new company that didn't have multiple other games to support. So like a game company that is just like, hey, we have a team we can dedicate to Legion, and then because it's kind of funny going back to when Legion first came out, we were getting multiple new expansions every month, and now we're getting like one wave every 6 to 9 months or so. It'll probably end up just being one wave a year at a certain point. That's just kind of how these games kind of slow down. Armada fans are used to this. X-Wing kind of had a pretty steady flow of expansion content for a long time, and then it's just started slowing down. And so like all of these games have kind of gotten used to the slowdown, but and while some slowdown is good, it's nice to see consistency. And we've been in this weird period where we were getting more recent stuff, and then it's kind of slowed down, and then some things kind of, a whole wave gets kind of broken apart. So what should have been like, here, this is the street date for this wave, and that wave kind of gets broken down over the course of like 3 or 4 months. It feels awkward, and so it'd be nice to see. And that's not anybody's fault. That's part of a lot. It's a very big, complicated, moving process with shipping and manufacturing, and maybe a shipping container falls off a boat and part of a wave gets lost and has to be reprinted or whatever. Like these are all things that can happen in the real world that are beyond any one person's control. So it's not anybody's fault. It's just it's just all kind of led to this whole uncertainty, that at least that I have about 2023, but also optimism about 2023, because a good renewal could be pretty cool, especially if it has AMG as the name, because this is another guess that I have, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the legalese with all this stuff listed, because FFG had the license when the big 3-year deal was done. And so it wouldn't surprise me if that's the reason that the website is up yet, because like Lucasfilm's like, no, our deal says Fantasy Flight Games can publish stuff for X-Wing, Legion, and Armada. Our deal never says anything about Atomic Mass Games publishing it. And while you guys made this switch over, you didn't hit it in this paragraph and this page and blah, blah. I bet you there's some kind of technicality because of the company switch that is holding up the website and some other future development. I don't know. That's just a guess. We'll probably never know. But little things like that. I've heard horror stories of other situations where some little technicality in licensing can be an absolute nightmare, and regular people will probably never really be able to hear about it, because that's stuff that the company themselves wouldn't be able to talk about. But I'm curious if you guys have any theories or what your thoughts are for 2023. Let me know down in the comments section. I will talk to you all later. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing, and I couldn't keep doing this without you for your continued support. So thank you. I will talk to you later. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. See ya.